get the whole story.
Now, the government set aside Monday the 13th as national holiday, the outset of its ambitious plan to plant 15 billion trees by the year 2032, a move that will see Kenya increase its forest cover by at least 10% and also mitigate the climate crisis and deforestation. Kenya's current forest cover currently stands at about 7%, but the government has set aside more than 12 billion shillings this financial year towards this goal. This is Planet Action. A very good evening to you. My name is Purity Museo Nzuki. In the next 1 hour or so, we look at the efforts by the government to conserve the environment and sustainable ways of achieving the targeted forest cover. Our guest tonight, Mr. Kaberia Kamenju. He is the chair, timber and furniture at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and also Dr. Caleb Basweti will be joining us later on. He is the secretary at the Environment Institute of Kenya. Welcome to Planet Action once again. Good evening. Thank you for being part of this conversation.
You're welcome.
This night.
Yes.
So let's begin with what your association, for example, was doing yesterday, because the government had declared it a National Tree Planting Day.
Yes.
First, where were you? Were you involved in this before
Yes.
you even comment on why you think, if you think so, that this day was important for Kenya?
Yes. Last year in 2022, CAM, or the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, we signed a framework of collaboration with Kenya Forest Service, where we undertook as private sector to rehabilitate 10,000 hectares of degraded forest land across the different state forests across the country. So we kicked off over the weekend. We had an exercise at Kijabe Forest Station, where we started the journey of 10,000, where we planted 21,000 trees, and that was our inaugural launch. And subsequently, we'll be rolling across the 41 different counties across the country, where CAM has regional chapters. Yes.
And many termed Monday a surprise holiday by the government. As an association that is concerned, we will be talking about your stand, especially on logging,
yes,
which you supported.
Yeah.
But let's talk about, I know you also support increasing tree cover by the Kenyan government.
Absolutely.
So it was a surprise holiday. I mean, would you commend the government for this, or what would you say in that regard?
Genuinely, I think it is a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
I think it was an idea long overdue. I keep on saying that Sahara was once a forest. People don't know that. And we have to do everything we can to push back the desert inch by inch. We are all aware of the vagaries of climate change that we are currently experiencing. So yes, I would commend the government for doing this, and hopefully moving forward, we could also have a holiday that ties in with the weekend, so you can have maybe 3-4 days where people are planting trees. But this was fantastic.
Which was from Friday,
yes,
I mean,
yes,
all the way to Monday. People
yes,
had the opportunity to do so. But looking at, as a stakeholder in the environment sector, conservation of the forest, would you say that the government achieved its target? Was it a successful day, maybe?
I'd say more or less, from where I sit, it was successful. Now, do we have learnings? Does government have learnings? Absolutely. I mean, this is the first time in the history of this country that this has been done. So naturally, it would be impossible to get everything right from the word go. However, it is a step in the right direction, and the learnings will improve the subsequent plantings across the years. Yes.
And where we stand as a country, where would you say we are as far as conserving our forest is concerned? And we are talking at a time when the president in July this year lifted the ban on logging, and yes, so many cases which we'll be talking about later on this show.
Yeah.
But where would you say we are as a country when we have a president who is at the front line in the fight against climate change and ensuring that the climate impact is addressed? And then now, let me not even introduce the logging, but yes, where are we as a country?
Definitely first among equals.
Yeah.
If you ask me, in the region, there is really no head of state that has chosen to lead from the front. As I'm sure you saw, KFS has been resourced, I think about 2,000 plus rangers, the largest in the service's recruitment history. So, and these rangers are for forest protection. So much as we are saying, yes, let's plant, there's also let's protect what we have.
Yeah.
So I'd say definitely Kenya is on the right track. Yes.
And moving forward, because we've seen now a National Tree Planting Day, how would you maybe advise the stakeholders involved, the ministry or even other environmentalists, how do they now approach this exercise so that they ensure it's sustainable, maybe yearly, monthly, but moving forward, what would you like to see as an expert or as a stakeholder in the forest conservation?
Well, I think my personal views.
Yeah.
I think the challenge we have regarding getting to the 15 billion trees or increasing our forest cover to at least 15-20%, it's incremental. I think these challenges can be solved by two organizations or two state organizations. The first one I'd say would be the Kenya prisons, and number two I'd say would be the National Youth Service. Why Kenya prisons? Hi, how are you? Yeah, why Kenya prisons? We have about 62,000 prisoners. I'd say about 40% of them are remandees. Now, state prisons, state remand centers, wherever they are, have water. They have large tracts of land, and they have a prison population that can be put to use. And for me, if you say 62,000 prisoners, 10,000 seedlings on a seedbed per prisoner, you're talking 600 million trees. You'd be way above the target.
Right.
Put in prisons and NYS, and we'd be home and dry. Yes.
All right, and finally, Dr. Caleb Basweti, Secretary at the Environment Institute of Kenya, now joins us live on the program. Welcome, sir, and thank you for making time for us. Yes, and we're just doing a recap before you joined us on Monday, yesterday, which was the National Tree Planting Day. Maybe I can also welcome your take on what you think this day meant for Kenya. Was it the right time, for example, to have this exercise where, for example, the government says that we need to increase our forest cover, we need to ensure that we plant at least 15 billion trees. And so Kaberia right here saying that, yes, that was a great move by the government. The government, of course, setting aside a day to plant trees. For you, would you say, because the organization is directly involved with tree planting, the Environment Institute of Kenya, would you say it was a successful day? Or how would you define Monday?
Thanks very much for having me in this program. Firstly, it is conservation of a resource.
Yeah.
It is an international norm. When a resource is approaching, is being degraded, all efforts are put together to address that problem. Even from the General Assembly of the United Nations, when an environmental issue has come out of proportion, we are approaching degradation, governments come together in the name of conventions to put resources to address that problem. Likewise, in the local context, the government did the right thing to declare Monday as a tree planting day. Basically, to bring all resources to address this problem.
Right.
Resources in terms of money, manpower, and also availing of the seedlings to achieve the intended goal of that exercise. So in short, the government did what is expected.
Yeah.
In addressing a problem, and this is the problem we are facing in the modern times.
Right.
Yes.
And again saying that the government did the right thing. So moving forward as an environmentalist, what would you like to see in terms of having such efforts, such such campaigns by the government where, yes, Monday was a public holiday and everyone was encouraged to plant trees, but moving forward, how would you advise that this tree planting drive or campaign should be really sustained? Yeah.
One is to prepare the citizen about the importance of tree planting. Give Kenyans enough time and information about an exercise. Secondary is to avail the seedling. When 20 million people comes to plant trees, we have to have enough seedlings. Enough from the source and enough availed at the planting point. Accessibility, availability. Yes.
And finally, before I also engage Kaberia, where would you say we are as a country as far as conserving the environment and especially the forest is concerned? Because we are all aware of the effect of climate change, and we've suffered and gone through all the impact that climate change come with. So where are we as a country? Would you say we are making strides towards our target and even the global target? Would you say that some of the efforts or some of the behaviors as Kenyans or government that we are showing or exhibiting are not in line with, I mean, we're not headed in the right direction? How would you describe us as a country?
The government effort towards the sustainability of environment is recommendable.
Yeah.
What is a challenge is the ethical aspect of the Kenyan. A Kenyan having access to a resource, there is that problem of extraction, of usage. In conservation, we have to look at three things. The economic aspect, the social aspect, and the environment aspect, where policies and technologies come together to address those three things. But most times, the environmental aspect is not taken into consideration. Only the economic and the social angle are more powerful than the environmental aspect. There's no balance. So this the imbalance causes the economic and social. It is the one that leads to over-extraction of the resource. And here the resource is anything that gives us utility and value. So when we overuse, when we over-extract, there is that tendency of degradation. And when degradation comes in, it is the third arm, the environmental arm of conservation, which is being affected, which is drawing countries and all over the world to come together to address a problem, and this problem is the degradation. However, we have got sustainable management strategies that promotes sustainable use of these resources. But oftentimes, these strategies are not followed.
Right.
Because of the ethics of man, which is human-centered, not environment-centered. Yes.
All right, and Kabere, I think we can pick up from what he's saying that we all agree that we are not on the, we've not reached, met the target that even as a country globally that has been set for every country as far as tree cover is concerned. Let's talk about some of these behaviors, either human behaviors. Of course, they are human behaviors, but let's say by the public or even stakeholders not playing their part to ensure that we are back on track and we're also going at the right pace. What are some of the things that you'd say if this, for example, is discouraged or stopped, then we would get back on track?
I mean, I think purity, human nature is human nature, and the laws are there, fines are there, jail. In fact, I think the Forest and Conservation Management Act 2016 is quite strict on forest encroachment and forest poaching. And It is just, let's apply the law. I mean, we cannot not move forward because of a few miscreants or misguided people that will now hold a whole country hostage. Yes, corruption is a problem, not just in the forestry sector, across the entire country. Now, I mean, there's corruption on the road, traffic police. I think I saw the CS pulled out roadblocks. But do you stop everyone from driving? You don't. So I think we need to focus on where we can make the difference and continue engaging the citizenry. And of course, the people who are caught, because now we have, one of the challenges we had in terms of forest protection and monitoring is you have 1-2 rangers overseeing 500 hectares. It was technically impossible. But now with the increased forest rangers, I am totally confident that this is something that can be arrested. This is something now there's capacity to monitor forest degradation. And once those culprits are found, throw the book at them. Yeah.
And I mean, Daktari, apart from having enough or rangers to monitor, would you say there is the required level of awareness among the public on why they need to conserve the forest, for instance?
Good question. Yeah. There's no proper understanding from the environmental aspect. Forest plays different roles. And in an ecosystem like Mau is so unique from trees found in an area which is not every ecosystem has got its own purpose. The problem of Kenyans, we do not understand the functions of specific ecosystems. For example, Mau, if you take, for example, if there are 1,000 trees in the Mau forest, and 1,000 trees in Kajiado, the ecosystem function of Mau is quite different compared to what is in Kajiado.
Absolutely.
That's what is missing. When we extract resources from such sensitive ecosystem, we do not understand the consequences we are causing in that ecosystem in terms of unforeseen underground processes which we normally tend to forget, and which are so crucial in sustaining life in this planet.
Right.
Yes.
And he mentioned Mau forest, which the latest new satellite data analysis reveals that the Mau forest, the largest, honestly, in montane forest in East Africa, is now continuing to lose trees because of illegal logging. We all know that. What's your take on that? Because I am 100% sure, and I have evidence against you, that your organization was really celebrating the lifting on ban on logging by the president.
You know, there's something I've sent on your phone.
Yes.
I don't know whether we can put that up as we're having this discussion. There's some images I've sent. Because I need us to separate things.
Yeah.
All right? Now, we have, in this country, we have 2 types of trees. We have, or 2 types of plantations. We have the indigenous forests, and we have the exotic forests. Now, the indigenous forests, you have your meru oak, your podo, your mahogany, your elgon teak, your muiri. I mean, a host of trees that are indigenous to this country. Now, it is, and it should be, and it should never be allowed for those trees to be cut. That is our position as Kenya Association of Manufacturers. But now we have exotic species of trees. Now, which are these? We have your cypress, you have your pine, you have your blue gum, or what is also known as eucalyptus. Now, these were trees that were introduced in this country in the 1930s by the colonial government, who foresaw that there would be a demand for wood, and so as to save us from cutting the indigenous trees. So cypress is not indigenous to this country. Pine is not indigenous to this country. Blue gum is not indigenous to this country. These trees were planted for the sole purpose of being harvested or being exploited. And purity, it even gets more interesting. In the 80s, the World Bank funded the Kenyan government, then to the State Department of Forestry, to establish commercial plantations. Now, KFS, or the State Department of Forestry, or government, did not just wake up and say, we shall have a cypress plantation in the middle of Mau. This is a well thought out process. Now, over and above, the plantation forests serve two purposes. One is for us to be able to sustainably use timber. Two, it was a buffer between the communities and the indigenous forests. All right? Because in this region, 80% of our energy needs comes from fuel wood. There's no running away from that. 80% of energy in Eastern Africa comes from firewood. The lady who is cooking for her children in the village, when it's cold, that is their primary source of energy. So we have to understand that what drives some of this illegal logging. So we are totally against purity, totally against cutting down or encroaching on the indigenous forests. What our point has been and continues to be is we were loaned money, because unless I'm wrong, Kenya Forest Service is still paying back this money. We were loaned money by the World Bank to establish cypress, blue gum, pine plantations, and we need to pay back this money. And this particular three species of trees have a shelf life. It's like maize. So if you don't cut them, they die. Now, if they die, the carbon sequestration, the carbon storage they're doing goes to zero. If you cut them,
are you sure?
100%. A tree only.
I've not seen any research that supports that when they die, they are hazardous.
No.
Yeah.
Biology, high school biology.
Really?
A tree is a living organism. A tree takes carbon dioxide and synthesizes into oxygen when it's alive. When the tree is dead, it does not happen. And I'd really ask you if you could put up those images.
I will not be able to access my phone.
You cannot, yes. Because those images show the heartwood of different cypress logs that are totally affected by heart rot. And that tree, 5, 6, 7 years, falls down by itself, can't be used for timber, can't be used for firewood, does not store carbon. We still need to pay the World Bank. So what exactly are we saying? And yet again, globally, timber is a sustainable resource. It has been shown.
Let me throw the same question to you, Dr. Caleb. I'm not sure whether as an environmentalist you agree to this. I mean, data will not lie. We saw even immediately after the president or the ban on logging was lifted, we saw the activities that were happening on the Mau forest specifically. And right now it's losing, we are losing a lot of trees and tree cover on this particular forest. What's your take on that?
Firstly, decomposition of trees in a forest is recommendable. It's a natural process that does a lot of good for the environment.
He says otherwise. So
yes,
I say for carbon sequestration, nothing.
Okay.
Unless in secondary, we saw when the ban was lifted, the behavior of Kenyans, the ethical aspect of Kenyans. You see, the indigenous tree and the exotic tree, the value, the indigenous tree, the timber from indigenous tree is more expensive than the exotic tree. Naturally, if these people who goes to the forest are given a free hand. If they have access to that forest, there is that chance that they will go and cut the indigenous tree and leave the exotic tree because of the economic aspect of the value of that tree. And because they are driven by economics, the value of the product, and yet the product is timber, they cause and want enough destruction to that forest. That's why we are seeing those destruction. It is a natural response which is guided by appetite for money, which we cannot control. It's human in nature. But we need protection, which is so crucial, to protect a resource, protect it from usage. And the protection comes in when we have realized that there is a problem. Otherwise, when there's no problem, we encourage sustainable use of that resource. Now that's the problem. So, protection comes in when the stability and the resilience of that ecosystem has been threatened. The ecosystem cannot be able to recover. That's why we say, don't go. If you proceed, we are causing environmental problem. Let us protect. But the problem is we don't have enough manpower to protect. There are a lot of routes that people can use to go and extract illegally from these resources. So protection is there, but effectiveness of protection is has not been met. That's the major challenge. So
in a statement, would you say then that the lift on the ban on logging was done, let's say, at the right time or not? Was it justifiable or not? Then we'll come back after the break to explain more. Kaberia, I know you have a lot to say.
I have to enjoy that.
I'm giving you the opportunity after the break, but in a statement, what would you say?
Lifting was commendable from the plantation forestry point of view. From the economic point of view of resource utilization, from social aspect. So the people who were in charge of that resource, who were protecting that resource, who were supposed to take the advice of the president to protect the resource and allow sustainable use of these forest resources as per the president's guideline. That's why we went amiss. But that it came at the right time, but the approach on the people who were given that responsibility to protect or to execute failed.
All right.
Yes.
Let's take a break. And then you're watching Planet Action, talking matters forest conservation and what could be done to ensure that we not only meet or get to our target, but also ensure that we are among the top countries that are really consistent in fighting climate change. Let's take the breather. We'll be back shortly.